It's an opportunity missed as a bomb after the siren kills a famous comeback for the Dons. This is the Sash, definitely not the official podcast of the Essendon Football Club. I am your host, Rob, here with you at Castaway Studio, and joining me in studio is Damo. Hello, mate.
G'day, Bob. Bad luck follows us.
Yeah.
That was hard viewing. There's sort of so many ebbs and flows. At quarter time, I was like, this could go anywhere. Then I was like, I don't know how we're still in it. Then I was like, we've had more scoring shots than them. Then they really switched on. And then I didn't know that we could actually get in front. And then thanks, Dan Houston.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dan Houston. Let's just start there with the goal and the emotion, the negative emotions that flowed through us all, and it was really funny. Because it is such a Essendon crowd, 99% Essendon supporters, 1% Port supporters, at least outside of the cheer squad, just having everyone in absolute raptures, and we had the rain, so everyone sort of cleared out from I was level one, everyone sort of cleared out, and I looked back and there was people undercover just going psycho. Just going from that to just everyone has their heads in their hands within a minute is, not a feeling I want to relive anytime soon. That's for sure.
I think I even saw today or yesterday, the last time Essendon had a shot after the siren and won was something like 1913.
What?
Yeah, I need.
That is wild.
I need a fact check it.
Fact check.
But I think we've had it happen to us 3 times in the last 10 years, like Jamie Elliott.
Pluggers, there's one I always can remember from back in the day.
It was the last time we've kicked a goal after the siren to win a game, I believe, was 1913.
Yeah. Do you remember that one where Essendon Sydney, I want to say.
David Myers.
No, it was Courtney Dempsey, and he marked it and then he played on the siren. Remember that?
At Marvel.
Oh, man.
But remember Dane Rampy jumping on the point post for David Myers?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's not for us.
No, it's not for us. It's not for us. And, I reckon there's probably 2 or 3 blokes in that Port team who could have kicked that kick. I reckon, obviously, Houston. Kane Farrell's a really good person. I probably would have put Rhodesy as the third. Maybe Butters, but I'm not sure if he has the leg to kick that. But there were 3 blokes probably on that side, and we happened to hit one of them with that kick.
And Hinkley said after the game, he goes, probably the only bloke I might have some mild confidence in is Houston. And even he said he didn't have confidence. So credit where credit's due. That was an outrageously good kick.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
It's 55, 56 metres in the wet at the end of a game at a sort of tight angle and 45 degrees. So, credit to him where it's due, but that was tough.
Yeah, it was tough. I'm not usually one who berates opposition players, I'm not one who abuses people or anything at the ground, but I was very close to where that kick was taken from, and this inner feral came out of me. And my mates who are usually, very parochial during a game were running down to the fence to just get up in his grill. Yeah. But unfortunately, whatever I said in that moment wasn't enough to put him off his game. So
interestingly, I was watching it, and when he kicked it, everyone went and celebrated with him. The one bloke that then stood there and was just giving fists of fury to the Essendon supporters was Jeremy Finlayson. So that leaves a slightly sour taste in my mouth. I know he's going through some personal stuff. But when people do that back to a supporter base, God, I hope they cop it sometimes in some other way.
Yeah, I reckon I heard "shave it off, Jeremy," referring to his hair, probably 50 times throughout the game. And then a few one kick in a grand finals to him when he got near it. So fair to say he wanted to give it back to the Essendon faithful, because we certainly dished it out to him. But it is. This is going to be one of those results where it was so close. We could have won it, and when it comes to the end of season, how are we going to reflect on this game? Is this going to be the game that cost us a spot in the finals? Is this the game that cost us a spot for a home final potentially? Are we going to regret, or I guess we do regret, but how much are we going to rue those misses in the last quarter, and even in the third quarter we really got on top of them?
Yeah, it's not a bad point. I still feel like the Collingwood game is the one that we'll look back on as the one that, but these are the games that good sides don't lose. Like good sides don't lose from that sort of position. And then you look at, I guess, Port Adelaide last year were guilty of losing a lot of these, and they've won a lot of them this year. Collingwood or the Masters are winning the close game. So whether it comes down, I don't really mind as long as we're actually playing a brand of footy that I'm proud of. And if sometimes teams cheat a win or things like that, you're like, almost like we really got away with that one. I feel like we've been more on the unlucky side of it this year, and it's surely bound to turn.
Yeah, I mean, look, how often does someone have a shot for the siren and kick it from 55 out and win? Not very often. I mean, the Collingwood game, we obviously completely choked and we blew it. But, I've watched that final 2 minutes of Saturday night. I'm sure you have as well a couple of times. And you just look at all these things like if the ball just bounced a little bit that way, or if his kick just went a little bit more this way, and, Heppel could have touched it, it would have been a deliberate, and all these things ran through your mind, let alone the missed shots on goal, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's like how often is a game going to be decided like that? And, if it was, half a metre shorter, someone gets a fist to it. Yeah. I saw one quote on social media and someone said, Phillips should have stood there and let someone, spring off his back to try and touch it. And I was like, look, I like the idea, but I feel like in the moment, they're not like, all right, circus routine, let's go. Woo! I don't think that's something they practice at training. So
I think the ball still would have got there. But, yeah, it's yeah, as you said, so many times you can look back on it and maybe that was the difference or this was the difference, but we still kicked 3 goals in the space of about 2.5, 3 minutes. So the fact that we still got ourselves back into the game from that position, because I think Powell Pepper might have kicked a goal or someone, they were up and about. They felt like they'd won it. Well, 17 points up. So to kick 3 in such a short period of time was impressive. And so we got a bit lucky there as well. But then also some of the missed shots really infuriating.
Yes, they are. Let's go back a bit further though, and we'll go to the start of the game. First quarter in particular, it was, I was worried that we were going to get absolutely blown out, and it looked like how they were playing against Fremantle. There was lack of energy, conceding a lot of inside 50s. Thankfully, they were kicking poorly in front of goal. They missed a lot of very gettable set shots, and that kind of kept it within reach. And then we did manage to jag a couple of goals late. And in a funny way, it was almost the reverse of the Fremantle game, where one team played really well, didn't capitalise, and then it all sort of changed. But, it still just shows that we still regularly have these down quarters, and we've had a lot of these one-off bad quarters against the good teams. This was a case where they didn't put 30 points on us, but, we've seen against a Geelong, we've seen against a Collingwood that, we're still susceptible to doing that at the moment.
Yeah, and we really, really got bullied, I thought, around the ball and even up forward. Sort of Dixon looked seriously threatening with his size. He looked too big for our backs. And then they were just, everything seemed to be working, but they just couldn't hit the scoreboard. And I think, they had 47% of the time in possession, and we had 38. And so when it comes down to that, that's complete ball dominance. And we were just on the back foot, and we probably just didn't match it with them from a tackling point of view. So old Essendon, that's a real fall over, and just all right, this game's just going to dribble off into nothing. But credit to Brad, and he really got him back on the straight and narrow. But that was, to have that first quarter after what we dished up against Freo was disappointing, given we're playing a team coming off the bye, not at home for them. So that's when they'd be sort of fairly flat, but they really sort of pounced us.
Yeah, and I was, at quarter time, one of my mates who I sat with just leaned over to me and was like, are we going to get flogged by 50 points? I'm like, it feels that way. It definitely felt that way at quarter time. But, they did change things around. Look, it did come a little bit late point in the third quarter, but we actually I think we adjusted to the wet well. And it's funny, I don't reckon I've ever thought Essendon was a good wet weather team for the better part of almost 20 years. I can think of countless games where I've watched us play, a bottom of the ladder Carlton in the wet, and they've outplayed us or someone else. But there's been 2 games this year, the Melbourne game in Adelaide and then this game, where it's been poor conditions, and we've actually kind of thrived in it. And I think our, little midfield brigade, who are quite good on the ground, it does really suit them. And I think, Parrish and Caldwell and Hobbs really stepped up winning that ball in those conditions. And I was like, oh, maybe we should open the roof at Marvel more. Like, maybe this suits us. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think Martin, I think's quite clean. Langford's quite a clean player as well. So I'm glad you mentioned Caldwell and Hobbs because they were super with their contested work and they were very clean. Parrish is quite good. He's very good to gather the ball, I feel, Darcy. He doesn't sort of fumble it too much. His disposal at times or his defensive running is where he lets himself down, but you can't knock him for his cleanliness sort of below his knees.
Yeah.
Similar to Zach, I thought was super. And together with Phillips, it was one of the first times, even for a ruckman, that I've seen a ruckman take such a simplistic approach to ruck work. And even in the last quarter, just banging it forward and just I haven't really seen a team do that because they're like, all right, well, let's control our stoppage. We know where the hit zone is, all that sort of stuff. But it was a real times where even Phillips really adapted well to the sort of wet weather throughout the game.
Yeah, and I think he had an interesting game, Flip, because Lysette was out at the very last minute and they've brought in this debutant who, let's face it, was, a Sandful quality ruckman. And then, Finlayson was in there for the first quarter just about. And I was sitting there going, is Scott Lysette playing? I think he was listed. Where is he? Like, what's going on? And yeah, there were times that, look, even really late in the game, and again, I know this is us looking going, oh, where are these moments we could have fixed it? I do wonder, though, in that real dying stages, was it better for Flip, who had the ruck ascendancy, to actually try and find a midfielder? Because we did bang it forward and then it sort of scrambled. I'm like, would it have been better to go to someone? But yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, because I can't even think who he actually was. I'd need to watch that a bit closer to who he was knocking it to. Like if you've got Stringer on a flank, then you can probably justify it. But yeah, it's always an interesting one. For me, I'd always try and take territory over like have Rosie, Wines and Butters near it.
Yeah.
I'd rather get it out of their territory because I think it's like Burton, Farrell and these sorts of guys, they're less intimidating for me than what I find like a clear clearance break of Rosie or Butters.
No, that's definitely fair. That's definitely fair. And then moving into the last quarter, I think one of the big sort of changes that I don't think it really went our way was how we used the sub. Dylan Shield came in for the last quarter. He only had 2 touches for the quarter. And then I guess the question is, one, firstly, was he the right person to be the sub? And then also, was taking Menzies off the right move? Some people have said Snelling should have been taken off. Some people said maybe Perkins should have been taken off, who didn't touch it in the last quarter. And I guess what you're hoping for a midfielder coming in, and particularly Sheila was a burst player, we just didn't get any of that. And I think he really struggled to adapt to the game and the conditions. And, he was basically fumbling it the entire time and really was ineffective.
Yeah, out of sorts. I think hindsight's a good thing. When he has such a poor quarter, you're like, well, we really cocked that one up. But it's also like maybe he was just a little raw and he's not sort of designed to be a sub player. He needs to grow into a game rather than be that burst sort of player. And that's probably good learnings. But coming off that interrupted break, and they probably like, we're not going to play him through the VFL. We'll just ease him in as sub. It's probably the fact that he just played so poorly. Menzies coming out is a hard, because Perkins didn't have a great night and Snelling. You can make a justification for all of them as long as like Guelphy stayed on. Then it's much of a muchness. They probably like Perkins is a clean, smart operator. Why don't we just stick with like Menzies come out as their little scapegoat? But Scott didn't say anything in the press conference, as far as I'm aware.
No, they didn't touch it, and I did watch it late on Saturday night when I was watching the cricket. I went and watched it back, and no one asked him about it. They didn't ask him about the sub move at all.
It was a short presser.
It was a short presser. You could tell he wasn't happy to be there. And
It was a 3-minute presser. They averaged like 8 or 9 minutes.
Yeah, they were pretty unhappy, I think. So, but yeah, no, it wasn't discussed. They didn't ask him. He didn't raise it at all. But if I was in there, I would have been like, oh, why was Menzies sub? What was the reasoning behind that? And I knew they would have done the generic, rotations and all that stuff. But I mean, it is a hard one because we didn't play 2 bona fide ruckmen. Like that's obviously the easy one that they often go to. In one of those games, even though they'd been poor, like you're not going to sub Wiedemann or Wright just because having a big target is just so valuable.
And especially because they play that intercept game so well with Alir that if you do take, say, a Wiedemann off, then they would simply just put their second defender onto Peter Wright, and then Alir would just do whatever the hell he wanted, and that's quite threatening. And statistically, Menzies had 8 touches, 2 tackles for disposal efficiency of 75%, whereas you compare that to Perkins had 12 with 3 tackles and Snelling had 14 with 2 tackles. So much of a muchness in that regard.
Yeah.
Was Menzies playing substantially better than the other guys?
Probably not.
Probably not. Well, the other one I'd probably look at is his pressure acts. I'll need to dig that up. But that's the only thing that I could really argue. Like, you're not really going to fight a massive case for someone that's had 8 touches. Yeah, exactly. Let's look at some goods and some bads from the game. Obviously, plenty of goods considering that we did take it up to a very, very good side, albeit without getting the result. I'll let you kick this one off. Damo, is there a person or something that you'd like to praise for a good game? Phillips, he went one out in the ruck against someone that is not AFL standard, so he did his job. If he got touched up, I'd be concerned.
It was sorry to cut you off. The marking around the ground was, I think, the plus for Flip because he had that period where he didn't take a mark for a month essentially. Yeah, but he was clunking him in the wet, and I'm like, oh, this is the Flip
he's so weird.
Yeah,
like even though he's like this monstrous redhead that's muscly and there's everything biologically just doesn't make sense to me. But he was clunking them against GWS. Then he goes this massive slump where he doesn't know how to mark, and then he does this. So it's not even really like a confidence thing. It's like, I don't get it with Flip sometimes.
Did he change his grippo or something? I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, but he was really, really good. I thought Caldwell, Hobbs, really loving what Hobbs is putting together. He cleaned up Rosie and Butters with some really strong body work, like where they both crashed into each other and they both came off second best to him. I'm loving what he's putting together. He's a real cretin.
A goblin, you might say.
Oh, yeah. Some of his stuff on the social media, he looks annoying. But and then Zachy Merritt's leadership, I really take my hat off to him. He's been so selfless and so calm with ball in hand. I've really loved him. And probably the fourth one for me is Redmond's game. After I was really concerned after the Freo game because his body language was poor. He looked really proppy, looked sore. He didn't want to be there. But then on Saturday night, I thought he was tenacious and he took it on and he was sort of the Redmond evolved. So I love seeing that.
Yeah. I'll go back to Hobbs real quick. He, for, a 19-year-old, such a big, strong guy. I happened to see him once. There's a gym right near my office in South Melbourne, and I was moving my car, and I just
So you weren't in the gym?
No, I wasn't in the gym. No, I don't go to the gym. I go to a gym near my house. I don't go to the one next to my work. Anyway, I'm on the bench press, and Hobbsy's there, and I'm like, "Come on, bro, spot me."
You're in the laneway, selling.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was crossing at the lights, and I see this big guy in a singlet and shorts. It was during summer. And I sort of did a double take and I saw that he was wearing Essendon shorts and I was like, oh, it's Hobbsy. And I was like, this guy's massive.
Really?
I was like, he's 19. So if he's doing that now.
What was the most astonishing physical trait?
Quads.
Yeah. So quadzilla.
Absolute quadzilla.
Really?
He'd be an absolute monster on the squat rack.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and then like you see games like this, and even against more bigger body midfielders, because Butters and Rosie aren't monsters by any stretch; they're just pure class.
Yeah.
I look at him now. I'm like, where's this guy going to be in 5 years' time when he's had five years in the system? Like I think he has the potential to become one of the best inside mids in the comp at some stage in his career. Yeah. He's absolutely feral on the ball. He's actually a very good user, which is something that I wasn't quite sure about him to begin with. But I really didn't know when we picked him up if it was the sort of right kind of player that we needed. But geez, he's good.
Yeah, for someone with such power in his quads, his kick's not overly penetrating, but he places it so well that he just like loops it up and slots it in. And he gets some decent yardage on it. And you look at him, and then you look at Ollie Wines for Port, and you almost like, is this sort of a bit of Ollie Wines 2.0?
Yeah, is this where it's going?
Yeah, and that's probably where I see it heading. And I love that they're playing him more in the midfield and giving him more centre clearances. Same with Caldwell. Like, it's the development and exposure that I've been yearning for since sort of, I guess, that halfway point of the season where I just felt like it was just Setterfield, Parrish, Merritt, Shield at every centre bounce. And I was just a bit concerned about our ability to develop the other guys. So he's been incredible.
Yeah. And I think we're all concerned about that. And, I do forget at times this year that this is still kind of technically a development year because we have a brand new coach. And I think there's part of it of Scott kind of been like, all right, let's just start with the senior guys for the first few weeks and then we'll see where things go. But now it's clear like, oh no, these kids are pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And I think what was really interesting on the weekend, you spoke about Zach Merritt's kicking, and my God, he was incredible. But I did feel like a lot of times it was like he's at half back a lot. He was at half forward times. And it wasn't so much that he wasn't staying in like at the centre bounce, because he was at plenty, but he was moving around and was doing jobs in different parts of the ground. And I think letting those guys spend a little bit more time at the stoppages. And yeah, just a real do as I do leader, Zach.
Yeah.
Like that tackle on Aaliyah was just about my biggest highlight for the game.
That was sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just everything you want in a captain and some. And the Zach of old probably would have like done the old cringeworthy like push him when he's down, or like the punch or whatever. He was quick to his feet. He got straight back up and he got on with it. And yeah, I've been very, very impressed with him.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic. And then Caldwell as well, you mentioned, just doing it all. Like he's kicking goal, like he's a goal kicking midfielder, which is hard to find. Hard to find. And man, there was a lot of times there in 10 years ago we needed a goal kicking midfielder.
But just tough and just is smart. His bodywork craft is very impressive. He doesn't lose many one-on-ones. His defensive pressure is really sound. He's still getting the ball. He's not coughing it up. He goes under the radar. He's getting more awareness, but he does still go under the radar because he's not the Parrish or Merritt or whatever. But he's so important for us.
Yeah, and I can see why Dodoro really wanted to go after him so hard. Because they would have wanted to draft him at that time. They didn't get him. He got snapped up, but then he just made the moves. He did what he had to do to get him.
Was it a second rounder or a first?
I think it was a second rounder.
And GWS refused to work with us ever again after that.
Yeah, that's just about.
We gave them 2 first rounders for Shield.
Yeah,
and they're like, "We'll work with you every trade." We gave him a second rounder for Caldwell. They're like, Jason McCartney said never again. That's why we never got Bobby Hill.
well, yeah. So the pick 11 was what we gave them for Dylan Shield. Funnily enough.
That they used on Caldwell.
They used on him.
It
doesn't say here what we traded him for. Anyway, I'm sure one of the listeners would know. Let's any more goods before we get back into bads? Anyone else you want to give it? Kyle Langford probably deserves one.
Yeah, he's been super. Very, very trustworthy in front of goal. Great mark. He's just a super asset to us. And a
lesson from the Freo game is it shows what happens when you actually look for him, because it felt like in that Freo game we did not look for him once, whereas here there was clearly a point in that game, I think definitely after quarter time, where they probably went, all right, Pete's not having a good game. Let's just get it away from Aliir as much as we can. And I think they actually were making space for him at times to, get it to Kyle.
Yeah.
Because the other guys weren't having a good night. So I think, a lesson there, actually look for him and he, might get on the end of a couple.
Yeah, and he is so smart with his leading patterns and his body work, and what he's able to do for his frame and the people he's playing on is so impressive as well. So, I was glad to see that sort of mindset change and our ball use change going forward that showed some really sort of sound development with us listening and following instructions, because the Essendon Vol would have just saw see ball, bomb ball, and then just intercept. And it was very predictable. But then that sort of started to change with sort of finding different avenues.
29 goals for the year for Kyle Langford. Do you reckon what are going to get to 40?
Yeah.
Yeah.
40
more from 8 games.
How much is he leading our goal kicking?
I'd have to double check, but I think he's up.
He'd be leading, then Stringer would be second, I'd imagine.
But I think he's a fair way ahead.
Yeah, after Stringer's game against GWS, and that was about it.
That was about it. Stringer. I reckon I've sat on our Thursday show for the last month, been like, Stringer's due for like 5 goals. He hasn't done it in a few weeks. He's due for 5.
Even Sam Durham said that, like, on the ground for the Essendon social media, like, who's going to have a monster? And, even he said Stringer's due for 1.
Stringer is due for 1. He's definitely due for 1. Sorry, as I continue to stall while I look for this. I look for these stats. Langford 29, Stringer 19, Jai Menzies 16. Perkins 15, the Weed 13.
And Caldwell, was he?
Caldwell 9, Nick Martin 11, Draper 10, Guelphy 9. So there you go.
Huh. But that's we're 16 rounds in, correct?
Yes.
And our leading goal kickers kicked 29.
Yeah.
Yeah. That probably sort of says a tiny bit, like, at least we're getting multiple avenues to goal. But it's not a super threatening sort of forward line as well at the same time.
Yeah, well, someone made a point to me. I mean, I guess maybe not. I think it must have changed. But, I mean, you look at some of the teams that, some of the teams who've got players with lots of goals, none of them are like the top 4 sides. I mean, the closest one is Joe Dano, who's got 39, and they're in the top 4. But, Taylor Walker, they're obviously 7th. Charlie Curnow, not in the 8. Nick Larkey, not in the 8. Cameron, just outside the 8. Toby Green, not in the 8. Oscar Allen, bottom. Charlie Cameron, obviously up there as well. And then Hawkins. There's a few players up there who've got heaps of goals, but
that's a fair point.
Their teams are no good. So I'd rather have lots of goals from everyone. Yeah. That's what I'd rather. Let's have 100 goals, but from 10 players, rather than one guy kicks 50, Yeah. I think it's better. Let's get into some bads because there's a couple. There's definitely a couple. Where do you want to start?
Parrish's kicking at goal is obviously a point we can raise. I guess it's 4 points, 3 sprays, the snap, but it wasn't necessarily the snap one at the end that infuriated me. It was
the one running to goal.
But he was streaming through the middle, had the opportunity to hit a target up for it. He kicked it to a Port player who I think dropped it.
Yeah.
Then he got lucky and got the handball to then kick it while he was open, running into a goal dead in front and missed again. So just back-to-back skill execution issues that really sort of infuriated me. And I never tend to get too angry at AFL players for skill errors because I always like to think, well, could I have done better in that situation? And if I feel like I couldn't have, then I'm not going to get angry. So I tend to only get angry at people's lack of intent.
Right, okay.
People that don't do the right team things. But I feel like I probably would have hit one of those targets.
Yeah. I mean, look, one was obviously touched on the line by Aliir and it got reviewed. The snap at the end sucked because, could have sealed the game. But you're right. It was that one where, I think it might have been Stringer or someone picked it up and hand passed it to him. And I can I can remember the crowd around me. Everyone was ready to absolutely go nuts. And there's this like this huge groan over the MCG. And like, I wonder if Parish was like, gee, do I want to stay at this club? All these people are groaning at me. Oh, but yeah.
And interestingly, I watched his game and there were some stoppages in the last quarter in the Port Adelaide forward 50. And he was setting up 2 wines at the stoppage. And I just watched Parish because I was like, I'm very interested to see what his mentality and his movement is. As soon as the ball goes up in the air, Parish pushes off Wines and gets 4 meters of separation and moves forward of the stoppage. Yep. So essentially, he ran from in front of the ruckman to behind the ruckman, essentially running forward at a stoppage in their forward pocket. And I just found that very intriguing that he's still willing to play Russian roulette with his running patterns. Whilst it's still a stoppage, and he left Ollie Wines free. So that was one thing that I got a bit angry with is he's just no defensive intent whatsoever. And that's what I'm going to be watching very closely for the rest of the year because when he was out, I felt like our midfield was slightly more balanced in a way that we defended better. We defended stoppages better. Clearances were a bit scrappier. Whereas if we have Stringer and Parish in the centre square with Merritt.
It's very attacking.
Very attacking. And Merritt shifted some of his mindset, which is a credit to him. But you're not going to say like, oh, well, nothing's getting past him. Like he's still a small enough guy. Like he's not the person you set up as your defense.
He's not peak Ryan Crowley.
Yeah, exactly right. But he's also like not like the size of Patrick Cripps where he's just the sweeper. So if we have them there, like that's fairly offensive. So we need to do something there. That's where I'm just curious. I'm not saying like I don't want to sign him. I definitely want to sign him, but I just want to see a bit more holistic, a more holistic game from him where I can see him do both ends.
Do you think there is an element where the coaching group may give him the license to do that and say that there are, whether it's a stoppage, a part of the ground or it's a centre bounce and go, all right, you guys are the ones here to try and focus on negating these players, whereas you're our prime ball winner because he is our prime winner. Yeah,
and they'd have to. Yeah. But and it must work. They must have some balance there. But I've just purely based off my own optics of watching the game, I'm very intrigued to see like how the rest of the year transpires from a midfield point of view. Especially, like, I'd love to get Setterfield back because Setterfield puts me a bit more at ease defensively around a stoppage.
Definitely.
So then if we've got, say, a Parish and a Stringer in the midfield, I'm a lot more comfortable with it. But when it's the 3 of them, I get a bit nervous just with what I saw on Saturday.
Fair enough. The other one who was obviously copying a lot of slack on social media and we talk about missing sitters, but this is one of the all-time sitters missed is the Wade, Big Sammy Wiedemann. Like, look, he didn't have a great night. Obviously, it is his job to kick goals. But if I'm going to play devil's advocate in his defence, here's my question: if he kicks, let's say he kicks that goal, and we still lost the game. Let's say everything else transpires, we still lose, but he happened to kick that goal, and that's just how it worked out. Do you think people would be as pissed off at the way he played, or is it just that one moment? And like, I know he's had a bad month leading in, but like, is that one moment? Sorry, my police phone's going off. Is that one moment why you think people are like, that's the tipping point for a lot of fans?
It's hard to say because everyone in the WhatsApp groups or message threads I was in were just hanging on it because I like I'd never want him seen on an AFL ground again. He needs to never be seen again. At the game, I personally didn't think it was horrific as what people were making it out to be. I feel like I get a far better reflection of someone's game when I watch it on TV. So I can't really comment on because I thought he at least tried at times. But I think even if he did kick it, as you sort of the question was, I think people would still really heavily dislike him.
Yeah, because like, again, I understand he's had a very poor month or 5 weeks, whatever it's been since he kicked a goal. But, like, he was better than Peter was.
That was
comfortably.
That was going to be.
He had 5 times the amount of marks that Peter had. He actually was involved in plays, and I know he was missed one of the biggest sitters we've had this season, and essentially almost cost us the game, or did cost us the game. But our prize forward was worse on the weekend. But I guess it is just the sample size of 6 weeks that everyone's just kind of fed up with the fact that he's not doing anything. So I'm answering my own question.
Well, Peter Wright had 6 touches for the game.
1 mark.
And then Weidman had 9 touches for the game with, 5 marks. And also played some time in the ruck. I'd be more pointing fingers at Peter because I walked away from that game. I was like, he got horribly beaten.
Yep.
And was that his 3rd game back?
Yeah. So I do wonder how the shoulder's feeling on a cold night. A cold night in the wet.
Based off how he prepares, it seems like that shouldn't be an issue, and especially for his injury, like it should be fine. If you're kicking 5 goals on Wiedering, and then you haven't kicked a goal on Aaliyah and you haven't kicked a goal on Pearce, I'd still rate Wiedering as above as a stopper, as a fullback, personally. So, he's probably the one that I had a bigger issue with from the weekend rather than Weidman. Yeah. And Weidman's quickly becoming our little whipping boy.
Yeah.
So,
well, we needed someone because Kyle Langford evolved out of it, so we needed someone else to put into the slot, and it is the Weed at the moment.
And Ham's no longer.
Ham got delisted, so we can't belt on Ham. Look, in Pete's defence, Aaliyah got away with a lot of stuff, holding jumpers, chopping arms, a lot of things that I feel like if they're in other parts of the ground, they might have, there was a marking contest in the wing. I reckon that's a free kick, but they just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating. And as I think a lot of people have forgotten, but a lesson that we learnt last year, Damo, lesson we learnt last year with Peter Wright, he does not like wet weather. The 7-seater Ford Titanium does not leave the garage in the rain. It stays indoors, likes a flat deck, it likes Marvel, and that's how Peter goes.
Yeah.
We had it was a clear sunny day when we played, it was a night actually, it was a clear night when we played Carlton.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very excited to see how he goes against Adelaide at Marvel, because there's one thing Peter Wright does well is he kicks goals at Marvel Stadium. So I'll give him that, because I know from history that every game last year that we had a little bit of wind, a little bit of rain, he was horrific.
Knowing this, and if the situation presents itself again, if rain starts to fall at the MCG, should Peter just voluntarily take himself off and sub himself off?
I was thinking, can we
Poor Menzies.
Or could we get the runner out with an umbrella just to keep over his head? Just keep him dry. Keep the mitts nice and dry, and then he can run up.
He should have one of those umbrella hats just running around. No, but I want a big game from Peter this week based off the last 2.
Yeah, and he's had a long time out, yada, yada, yada. One of the moments that really frustrated me was when, I can't remember who it was, maybe Kane Farrell, but one of their guys was going back with the flight, and it was sort of edge of the centre square, and Peter carried the cross over the top. And I was like he kind of went to sport, and I was, man, you should have flattened that bloke. Yep. You should have absolutely crunched him. Even if you gave away the free kick, you just let him know that you don't get in my way. And there was a little part that went, is that a little bit of fear for that shoulder? A little bit worried that I might do something if I go too aggressive at it. And I watched it, and I'm like,
or the tribunal.
Yeah, that's obviously more important. But I was like, I reckon he should have hit that contest a little bit harder.
And I think there was times throughout the game where there were a few opportunities for us to potentially flatten someone and to set a standard and not a line in the sand, but just to be this is what we stand for from a team toughness point of view. And
Hobbsy and Caldwell did a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
I'll give them credit to that.
And that was probably going to be the only thing I would say is those 2 probably did do that. Yeah. But they're not the ones that I need flying the flag. It's probably more the bigger guys that are no, if you're gonna go back with the flight, you're gonna stand in our way. Prepare for something to happen to you.
Yeah, because Powell Pepper essentially murdered BZT there at one point, and I was like, oh, he's never getting up out of that.
Yeah,
he flattened him.
Yeah, BZT had to pick up his own lung from the ground and then like re-swallow it.
Yeah.
I was like, I think he's fractured 10 of his 12 on one side.
Yeah.
And then he was like, the doc came out, he just waved them off and hobbled off with his bung old hip that he has.
Yeah.
No, but there are just a few times I would have liked, because they are a lippy little mob that get up and about. Your Pal Peppers, Rosie, Butters. Butters gets really lippy. So they're the sorts of guys that I'd like to get a taste of their own medicine, especially because Charlie Dixon is like sort of walks around as if he's like the greatest sort of tough guy in the comp right now.
Yeah.
They're the ones I want humbled a bit.
Yeah. I've said this to a few people. Charlie Dixon he's a criminal in any Australian cop drama where they need like a kind of rough looking bloke to like be in like a drug bust. That's Charlie Dixon. He's the perfect cast type for it. But you're an actor. You're not actually tough. You're an actor. You look tough, but you're not.
Yeah.
You know, that's how
you're working paycheck to paycheck as an actor.
Yeah, as an actor. As an actor. Great typecasting. Would 100% back him in. You know, if we're next season of Underbelly, we need a guy, you know,
literally
get him in.
Yeah.
Fills the part. On BZT, how do I phrase this? I didn't think it was too bad. I actually thought our defence held up pretty well under some pretty big pressure. I think the collective Ridley, Laverty, BZT, whilst at the start it was very hard because the Port forwards were getting spoon fed it. I thought they did really well. Like Todd Marshall was virtually ineffective for the game.
Yeah, and he's a insipid little whippet though. I was pleased with how the boys responded in the second, third, and fourth quarter, and I know they tried their guts out, and I thought they competed really, really well. I still have a sense that the big forward is a bit too big for them. So I do get nervous. But then I was also thinking about it from a long-term future point of view. And the big guys in the comp that really scare the bejeebers out of me that we struggle to match up against are Taylor Walker, Hawkins, and probably Charlie Dixon. All three of them are on their last legs. And then I see the forwards that are coming through, and it's your mobile athletic types of your King brothers.
And BZT he plays well against the King brothers.
Yeah. And so there's an element where I'm like, everyone's like, we need a big key position back. And I sort of get that, but I'm not sure how much we really, really desperately, hugely need someone to take on these big boys in 2 years' time when I'm not seeing the forwards in the comp that are going to turn out like these guys.
Interesting.
And that's just like, well, Tom Lynch is probably one, but he plays a high centre forward. And
he's 30.
Yeah. Harry Mackay, well, I'd actually want to give you the ball because you give us the ball back.
Yeah.
Kerno's an athletic sort of bloke.
He's not a monster.
Yeah. And so Jeremy Cameron, he's more mobile.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these guys, like
Nick Larkey's a big unit.
Yeah. Again,
probably more athletic type as well.
But it's like he's not going to stand there one-on-one and just completely dominate them like Hawkins or Tex.
Oscar Allen did, to be fair, against us, even though he won.
Yeah. And like I still think we need it.
Yeah.
We definitely still need it, but it's like
I understand your point though. Like there isn't a next Tom Hawkins in the comp. There isn't a guy who looks like he should have been playing in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like there is no big barrel-chested bloke. They're all slender and lean and they can jump and they look like basketball players.
Literally stands there and bench presses the opponent away. Yeah. So I definitely still think we need it. Do I think we need to throw huge cash at someone to have them for the next 6 years? Probably not huge cash when we've got like Hayes, Reed in the wings and hoping like how they develop and we don't cock that up from a physical standpoint.
Touch wood.
But yeah, it'll be an interesting one for me, like, because if we can get Reed right, oh my God. And we say it a lot, but and it is sort of like a broken record.
Yeah.
But I'd rather put a lot more time and effort into blokes like that or BZT than throwing 6 years, $800,000 at Ben Mackay.
Yeah, but saying if we can get Reed right at the moment, feels like saying if we can turn water into wine. Just doesn't feel possible at this point in time. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen.
Simply won't happen, but on a Monday night show when it's typically Mert and it's sort of glass half empty,
yeah,
I will turn that water into wine and I will be glass half full.
Okay. I don't mind it. Just a little forecast forward before we get ready for our break and chat to Paul. We are playing the Crows this Sunday at Marvel Stadium. Where's the best place to sit at Marvel Stadium, Damo?
I believe it's Medallion Club.
It is in the Medallion Club. And if you want to go to the Medallion Club, our friends at Ticket Blaster have access to the best seats in football.
They're the best in the world to deal with as well.
They are very good to deal with.
Yeah.
I can't wait because, geez, it's been like, I feel like it's been months since I've been under the roof there in my comfortable seat.
Peter Wright.
Peter Wright. If you want to get tickets to the Peter Wright show this weekend and you want to boo Taylor Walker at the same time from the best seating, well, Ticket Blaster. That's the place to be.
Ticket Blaster is the answer.
Yeah, premium seating, Marvel and MCG, of course. Back half of the year, we have got some seriously good games. We've got that one Friday night against Doggies. And then potentially, should be 2 wins North and West Coast as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've got the Swans there.
Do we?
And then I think that's it. But
That'll
there's
be it.
plenty of games.
We got Geelong at Geelong, Collingwood at MCG.
And got GWS up there, which is second last round.
Do we?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, looking like a loss, that one. So, yeah, Ticket Blaster, great seats. Get on those. Let's take a break. We'll come back with Paul for some VFL chat. And then if I've got time, maybe some hot takes. We'll see how we go. Back after this. Welcome back, everybody. It's the time for the VFL wrap with Paul Cousins. Paul, hello, mate.
Hello, boys. I imagine I'm the most upbeat one in this conversation this week. Is that the case?
I reckon it might be.
Mert's not here, Paul, so it's actually been quite a glass half full show. So
yeah, Mert always drags the
mood. Yes.
Congrats
indeed.
on the win, though, mate.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Reverse result. Crazy.
It was. Yeah, it was. We were just talking off air about the footy gods, like. The ones lose by a kick after the siren on Saturday night, and we win with a kick after the siren on Sunday. So it's funny how the footy gods work. They can be cruel at times, but thankfully, we got the chocolates in. To be honest, it was a fantastic game of footy. Like, it was a cracking game. They're a very good side, one of the best in it, and our guys really turned up and took it up to them, and. At one point, a bit like in the senior game, we looked sort of dead and buried with a minute or two to go. And, we were able to claw our way back in and get in front. Unfortunately, the ones did that as well, but just we're about, 10 seconds short.
Mm. Can you talk us through that final, minute passage of play for any of the listeners who may not have seen the vision?
Yeah, so we had a few sort of – it was getting deep, like it was sort of 30-plus minutes, and there was a point or two in it. And I think from memory, Coxie managed to kick a point from really deep in the pocket, which drew us level. And then sort of both teams had a bit of a chance at it, and it was an interesting ploy. Their fullback went for a big torp off Coxie's point down the middle, and I always find that a bizarre strategy if you're not great at it, because chances are at Windy Hill you can hit the centre circle pretty much if you've got a decent leg from a kick out. So, but particularly when you can take 15 or 20 metres before you kick it. So, and if you're doing that with a drop punt, you've probably got a fair bit better chance than munging a sort of inverted torp 50 metres into our hands, which we were pretty happy about. So, so we were happy to turn that around and managed to hit up Waller with like literally 1 second before the siren went. He thankfully his hands were clean, as we've come to expect over the years, and he marks sort of 30 out directly in front, pretty much, and. I mean, as his feet hit the ground from the mark, the siren blew, and he went back, only needed to point, did exactly that, and we all went apeshit.
Any score
For
will
one
do.
of a better term.
Any ales on Sunday night?
I've actually been a little bit under the weather, and I had my 2 kids with me, so I refrained. I did enjoy a Gatorade shower, but other than that, I refrained from the ales. Yeah, but I believe the boys might have got together. We've got the bye next week, so I think there was a little bit of a celebration had, which is good. You know, it's been trying couple of months for our group, and you know, I give them a lot of credit. They've really stuck tough, and probably earned a beer after that result on the weekend.
It's been 9 losses in a row prior to this win, if I am.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, no.
Thanks for reminding me.
Well, I was just going to say, like, you know, what does a win like this do for morale, especially when it is against the top side in the VFL?
I've only taken the mickey, mate. Like, you can't. There's no point hiding from this stuff. It's, you know, like reality is reality in footy. It's if you've lost 9, you've lost 9. There's no point sugarcoating it. So it's been hard, you know. It has, and it's we've been in a lot of those games and probably should have won, you know, 4 or 5 of them, really, and have sort of fallen away late and ended up with some pretty ugly scorelines in some games we could have won, which has been difficult. But as I said, I give the group a lot of credit. They really hung tough through some team who's on top of the ladder this week. Look, I think it sounds funny, but getting back to Windy Hill probably helped us a bit. It's sort of maybe the closer confines, a little bit of the ground, given our current sort of midfield mix, and that was a bit of a benefit rather than too many wide open spaces. You know, there was a really good crowd in. The atmosphere was fantastic, and our guys, you know, I thought the pressure that our guys brought early in the game was absolutely immense. You know, led by Waller and 1 or 2 others who, you know, their attack on the footy and the man was sensational early, and it really set the tone for the day. And look, there were times when we got 4 or 5 goals up, and then they were able to get all the way back. And you know, there's probably games that we've had like that throughout the course of the year where teams have then just kicked away to a comfortable sort of win against us. But you know, we really stuck in and fought it out, and thankfully the footy god smiled on us at the end.
Paul, you mentioned like even the last sort of few months have been quite challenging for the group with like the losses, and again they were challenged on the weekend. Are there any sort of particular names or personalities that stand out for you that have been quite pivotal from a leadership point of view? Because VFL teams are often filled with like the younger, more inexperienced AFL listed players, but we've got a few experienced players. But any of the VFL players or AFL players that have surprised you with their leadership and their demeanour?
Yeah, look, just to go on a slight tangent with it, but Lee Tudor's one. I mean, as the coach, he's so experienced. He's been around footy such a long time at the pointy end of it. You know, there's nothing in the game that he hasn't seen, and he's really been pivotal in keeping the morale of the group together, and he's set the standard, you know, for the playing group to follow, because as you say, we are a really young group. And pretty inexperienced, but he's set the standard for our incredibly young skipper and Billy Cootie, who's just shown leadership beyond his years, and you know, been fantastic as a leader of that young group. I think a guy like Brad Benacki has been fantastic for the group. He's a really bit of a heart and soul kind of guy who the group really get around. And look, it's probably unfair to single out too many, but you know, even a guy like Waller coming back, who started with our VFL program in the exact position that so many of our VFL listed guys are at, hoping for a crack at AFL footy. Has done some incredible things on the big stage, but I think he's really enjoying his footy, back at VFL level. And he's been terrific as well for the group. I could reel off a dozen. Hindy's been really good since he's come down and was terrific on the weekend. And even a few sort of, slightly more unsung guys. Sam Conforti, played a fantastic game on the weekend. He's a terrific young leader for us. And even a guy like Will Madden, who has only played a couple of games with us, but he's just a ripper. He just absolutely buys into the program. He's there every week, whether he's playing or not. And, the first one to sort of help out with the property guys need to pack some stuff up. He's out there doing it. Just stuff like that.
The little things.
Yeah, just they're the things that bind a group together. And it is a young group. It's a group without a lot of experience, but it's a group that's through a difficult period really hung together well. So, and as I said, Lee Tudor certainly deserves a lot of credit for that as well.
Will Madden's no relation to any other Madden by any chance, is he?
I'm sure he is, but not Simon.
Okay, just thought I'd check.
Yeah. No, he's a Ballarat boy.
Ballarat boy, gotcha. The big name that everyone's always has been talking about in the VFL, of course, is young Elijah Sardis. And going by the stats, it looks like he had a very, very big game, 35 disposals and a stack of clearances and tackles. How'd you see his day, Paul, and what sort of role did he play?
Yeah, he was terrific. He was around the footy all day. I thought it was clearly his best game by a very big stretch for us. His numbers have been good in other games without having a huge impact, I think, on the contest. Like, he's been good, but hasn't necessarily really swayed contest. But I thought his work on Sunday was fantastic. He was in and around the footy. He was... he got several clearances. He was able to use his burst speed to get out of the contest and break a line at times where other guys struggle. And in games like that where it is really tight around the coalface, if you can have a guy who can break that first line, it can really open up the game for you. And he was able to do that very well.
Was he best on? No, was he best on?
Oh, yeah, he was certainly in our best couple, without doubt. Yeah. It's always subjective, these things, but
was he your best on, Paul? Was he your best on?
Geez, you put me on the spot now. I'll get in trouble from someone else. I thought he was. Probably. Yeah, he's probably our best. I thought. Brazier in the ruck was terrific. I thought. Hindy was pretty good down back. Joel Fitzgerald, I thought, had a fantastic day, and including several key marks in the last quarter where he was able to intercept. It was like they're playing kick to kick with Fitzy down back, and it's hard to go past Waller's effort as well. I think he had 9 or 10 tackles and found plenty of footy, had some clearances, and then kicked the winning score. So you can throw them all in a bit of a hat, but I thought Elijah was, he was probably our best, or certainly, if not our best, very, very close to.
When often when you sort of see a young bloke being sort of ready for AFL standard is when they're sort of a class above in the VFL. And I think you've mentioned like Elijah, whilst getting ball in previous games and sort of the stats racking it up, it probably flattered him a bit with his impact on the game. Would you say some of the stuff that he did on the weekend was like your first sort of instance where you're like, wow, this kid really is potentially like that class above and isn't far off?
Oh, I think there's no doubt he's a class above, and I think he's shown that in all these games, just in glimpses. I think there were a lot more glimpses on Sunday. Yeah. So I thought he really stood out. Look, they're a terrific unit, Gold Coast. They're I heard some. I don't know how true it is, but I heard someone say the other day that they had 2 AFL players miss out on getting a VFL game because their list is so big and so deep, and they have not many injuries going at the minute. So
must be nice.
I'm not exactly sure how true that is, but I did hear a whisper, whether they're cat bees or something, I'm not sure. But they've got
You're
guys
saying our VFL team beat an AFL team. Is that correct? Lead, Paul, lead.
Their list is about 55 or something still, isn't it? Like they've got an enormous list.
There's 50 guys, aren't you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. After those concessions that they had, and part of that was an increased list size. So they're still carrying, I think, it is. It's 50 or 52 or so. I don't know. Someone will correct that, but it's a very big list. And obviously, when you've got a list that big, you're going to take a fair few flyers on Cat B types who may or may not turn out, So whilst it is a big AFL list, it's not like there's 50 AFL ready guys on it. That's not the nature of a list like that. But they had guys like Alex Davies who's played, some really good AFL footy. Charlie Constable, who's was a ball magnet at Geelong who just couldn't get a look into that midfield, and Tommy Berry and Elijah Hollands, who I think was an early first round pick.
It's not bad.
Jeremy Sharp, I think.
Yeah.
Who's a good player as well. And so, look, they had a.
So the lid's off. The lid's off. Is that what you're saying? Am I picking up what you're putting down, Paul? Is the lid blown off? Or are you going to Vegas?
But we might have left our run a touch late. But look, when you look at a guy like Elijah Sardis, he's not doing that against a group of nobodies. He's doing that against a very talented. A very talented midfield group from Gold Coast. So, I think it adds legitimacy to his push for selection. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I have no idea. It's again, we all talk about get him in, but you got to drop someone too. So, I think they're struggling a bit to fit all the mids into the AFL group as it is at the moment. When you look at a Dylan Shield was sub on the weekend and. We've sort of, you start to get your mids playing as forwards and backs and whatever else just to fit them in. So, I suspect it'll still be difficult probably for Elijah to break in immediately, but he's starting to really look like a guy who's AFL ready and, showing some terrific signs for hopefully a really long career with the club.
Can I ask you about Nick Cox, Paul? Had a goal and 17 odd disposals, and you said he kicked a valuable point there at the end. Can you tell us about his game and the role that he was playing?
Yeah, he was up around the ground more coxy probably than he has been in the past few weeks, and was able to get up onto the wings and find some footy. He did. He also had some really nice moments behind the ball, and as you say, went forward and was able to hit the scoreboard with a minor major. I think from memory he kicked a goal as well, so I shouldn't rob that. But the point was pretty handy in the end. I think that drew us level, so the point was probably as handy as any goal kicked on the day. But I thought he had a really good day, Coxie. I thought it was clearly his best game back for us, since he's come back from injury. And it's easy to forget he's been a long time out of footy, Coxie. It's probably just a matter of him now getting more comfortable with the pace of the game and feeling confident and probably getting back into some slightly more familiar positions for him on the field as well. So he had a very good day, and a lot of guys did, but he certainly stands out on the ground, Coxie, given his size and athletic ability. And when he plays well, he doesn't get missed, that's for sure.
He seems to be able to tolerate more contact and be a bit more sort of physically robust this year compared to other years where he's sort of getting knocked off the ball or losing his balance sort of in a contest. Based off what you've seen, would you agree that his sort of ability to hold his sort of position is better?
I expect so, given he's a third-year player now, and the last time we saw him, he was a first-year player, They spend they might not look a lot different to the naked eye, but they spend a lot of time in the gym. They get heavier, they get stronger, and they get used to, working against AFL bodies at training and that sort of stuff. And a guy who's 200 centimeters and probably about 7 kilo dripping wet in his first year. He's going to get knocked off the footy. That's just reality. So they were able to use his strengths really well in that first year and keep him away from big, heavy bodies too much. But then teams sort of probably started to figure that out a bit and put some body through him, as you would when a young bloke's sort of cutting you up a bit. So, he clearly, even though he's had a really interrupted run at it, he's clearly put in some work behind the scenes that I think I agree is paying some dividends, and he looks like a guy who's going to be stronger over the ball. But again, you expect that with that growth from a first to third year guy. It's great to see it, and hopefully, when I'm sure at some point he's going to work his way back into the seniors, and hopefully that translates when he goes up.
And last one, Paul, if I can ask you about ADJ, Owen Davey Jr. Looked like he had a lot of the footy on the weekend. I think at least a career high in the VFL. How was his day, and where was he playing?
Yeah, he had a really good day, actually, Owen. I thought his pressure around the ball was fantastic. He played up in and around the midfield as well as forward, as he has been for the sort of month or whatever he's been down with us. And he had a real impact on the game. You're right. I think he had sort of, someone will tell me, mid-20s maybe, possessions.
23,
something
23.
along those lines.
Yep.
There you go, 23. So was able to impact the game without hitting the scoreboard. Probably in his first half of his, everyone forgets it's his first half of his first year of senior footy, but he was
fair point.
So we can judge that harshly, but he was probably pretty low numbers, but his impact came through goals. And being able to hit the scoreboard and sort of tackling and that sort of thing. I thought he was able to have a real impact on the game with ball in hand on the weekend, around the ground, as opposed to sort of having to hit the scoreboard. I don't remember him having a shot for goal. He might have, but he was a pretty complete game around the ball, and I think a lot of tackles, a lot of pressure acts, and some really good endeavour. So I thought it was a really positive game from Alan.
Paul, by this weekend, any grand plans?
Yeah, I'll probably go to the footy.
Sounds good to me. I'm doing the same thing.
I'll still go to the AFL, and apart from that, I'll probably get to some kids' basketball games and all that stuff. Real exciting, sort of breakout party sort of stuff. But it'll be. To be honest, we had a buy not long ago, so I'm a bit over them. I hate buys. They annoy the hell out of me. It's good to get a weekend off every now and then, but 2 in a month is too much.
Yeah.
So especially after
you love your kids, but
no.
Come on.
Dad needs his escape. Actually, I took the kids at the weekend. So,
Dad needs his outlet.
It's hard. Like, you get a great win, you try to carry some momentum, and then you get a weekend off. What a letdown.
So it happens when they've got 21 teams in the league for some strange reason. But that's a discussion for another day, Paul.
It's a weird league, but anyway, we love it.
We love it. We do. Paul, great as always with your time. We'll touch base in a couple of weeks, and hopefully the boys can build from this result.
Thank you, lads. Yeah, it's a good weekend. So here's to a few more wins before the year's out.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, guys.
There we go, mate. Paul, great as ever. Such a good story. Tipper kicking the sealer.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
And, like a guy that's done a lot of work, comes back, had a few interruptions, and then to break our VFL's losing streak, essentially where he came from. That's really, really nice, and he's been caught up in some good stories, but it's good to get him for him to get some nice reward.
Definitely. We'll look to wrap up the show, Damo. We haven't done any hot takes. I haven't listened to any of them because usually I do a little bit of pre-listen before them. do you want to play a little bit of Russian roulette? And if we have to just bin things and don't put them to air, then that's what we do. Do you want to do a bit of that?
Yeah, look, why not?
All right. So we'll make sure my computer audio is up.
This could go anywhere.
Oh, these could go anywhere. So I don't know. I'm probably going to stick to the shorter one. So apologies to anyone who sent a long one through. So let's. I don't know. We'll start with let's see how this goes. All right. This one is from Zach and his cat. Thank you, Zach and his cat.
It doesn't even hurt. 20, even my cat's upset, to be honest. Like, you can hear her. What do you think? Are you upset? What do you think about the goal after the siren? Yeah, same. Yep. See, even my cat's fucking crying. Thanks a lot, Darcy Parish.
Oh, a bit of drive-by at the end there.
Whoa.
I was about to say, I guess the cat's not called Darcy then.
Hopefully no animals were harmed in the recording of that.
Yes.
That was a seriously sad cat.
Yeah, it was a seriously sad cat. I'm just looking at the text for some of these, and like this one just has like 20 F-bombs at the start. I'm like, I'm not going to play that. That's not going to. All right. This one's from Please Not Again. Let's see how this one goes.
Hey, yeah. Just wanted to speak to my GP. Kind of need to go on a mental health care plan. Oh, why do I need a mental health care plan? Well, at first it was Jamie Elliott, and now it's Dan Houston. It's just getting a bit much, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, if that person does find a good therapist, please send through their details, because I reckon I might be giving them a little call.
Whole new meeting to a sports psychologist.
Yeah, exactly. A sports psychologist, but for fans.
Yeah.
That's what we need. A fan
not for the athlete.
Yeah,
for the
fan psychologist. Yeah. A fan psychologist. Yeah. All right. This one's from Cricketer's Arms. This should be interesting.
Rob, Sash boys, we were good tonight. We were good. We were hard. It was wet. We were fucking hard. Near enough to 2 metre Peter. Tried hard all night. And I think I've had more weeds than the other centre half forward. We're shit.
I'm assuming he was at the Cricketer's Arms. That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm getting from that.
Geotagged him.
Yeah, geotagged him. All right, we'll do 2 or maybe 3 more. We'll play the short ones. This one's called Cry for Help. Let's see how this goes.
Bro, why does everyone call him Jai Menzies? What are you on about? It's Jai Menzie. What the Oh my God. I'm having an aneurysm over that and the fact we lost that game after the siren.
I think it's a lot more of that in this inbox at the moment. I mean, there's one here, Damo, called "It's not depression. I just support Essendon." Let's play it. Let's see what they say. This will be interesting.
G'day, gents. Yeah, that one fucking hurt a lot. Yeah. Oh well, shit happens. Not here to belt Wiedemann up, but fuck, drop him, give him a spell, because I'm over it. You know, kick that goal, possibly could have won the game. Yeah. Fuck. I'm going to have a bath with my toaster.
Oh, the bath and the toaster. That's the second week in a row we've had that. All right, Damo, you can pick the last one. We're either going to go with Jimmer or Michael. Jimmer or Michael. Which one do you want to go with?
We'll go with Michael.
We'll go with Michael. All right, let's see how this goes.
Overall, despite the shattering loss, you can't fault the effort. There's consistency every week, which I'm happy with. I just want to ask this, though. If we played Nick Cox or Patrick Voss instead of Sam Wiedemann, or likewise we played Nick Bryan instead of Andrew Phillips, would we be in a worse off position? So that's basically 2 extra guys we can develop without sort of jeopardising our position on the ladder.
Thoughts?
Not a bad thought. I probably still prefer Flip over Bryza currently.
Yep.
Just from a physical combativeness point of view. I don't mind. I don't think we'd be too severely worse off if we played, say, Cox instead of a Wiedemann.
Or Vossi, yeah.
Or Voss. Like, I think we spoke off air of maybe looking to swing Weed back, and we won't it's the end of the show, so we don't have to talk about it too much, but that would open up a spot for Voss or Cox.
Mm.
And that's sort of what I'd be angling towards. So don't mind it, Big Mick.
Yep. Old Weeds needs to get on the score sheet. Now, it's frustrating when you go through these spells because it definitely starts getting in your head. It's like, Mackay and all his demons shooting for goals. That once it's in there and you got that doubt, it's always hard to shake it,
The only thing that I sort of think of not dropping Weed, and like so many listeners and Mert will hate me for it, and Mert will probably hit me, is that Melbourne Footy Club would drop Weed now.
Yes.
And this is where
I think they would have dropped him for 3 weeks ago.
They would have dropped him a long time ago. Sorry about that. They would have dropped him at round 5. But I don't know. Maybe this is again glass half full show. Maybe if this level of persistence and confidence in him swings his own confidence, I'm pulling shit out of my own ass. It's just wishful thinking. But yeah,
maybe he'll turn the corner.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll kick it back against the Crows. Who knows? Who knows? Listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in for tonight's podcast. Thank you, Damo, for being here. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Bob. Great to be here. Thanks, Des Lecky.
Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Des pushing the buttons. We love that. Listeners, if you want to become a premium member and listen to our Thursday preview shows, you can find the link in the show description as well as on all our social media. $4.99 a month or $42 a year, and you get an extra show every week during the season. Thursdays are a lot of fun. They're a little bit looser. They're a little bit more wild. You sometimes get King O's down in Geelong saying some very interesting things, which we love.
Fun fact: yet to do a show sober.
There we go. Yet to do a show sober, which we love. I think he's never been to an AFL game sober in his life, to be honest. Knowing Alex. So yeah, you get that. You also get access to our Discord with all the lovely people in there who are talking Dons all day long, which we love. The daily Dons thread in there is just it's the best. It's never ending. So yeah, love that. If you want a cap like the one Damo's wearing, you can get them on the website, as well as the beanies and all the other stuff we got there. Helps support the show, helps keeps the lights on, helps do everything else. Thanks to Ticket Blaster for all the work they do for us, and I think that's about it.
Thanks again to Des Lecky.
And thanks again to Des Lecky for pushing the buttons. Two shout outs in one pod for old Derek, which he loves. Listeners, thank you so much. Go the Mighty Bombers. We'll be back on Thursday for the preview of the Crows, but until then, go Dons.
Dons footy, baby.